Welcome this afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen Forbus, and I am a blogger. And it is my honor to be here today to interview your international guest of honor, Val McDermid. She's the author of 25 books, including works in 3 series: Lindsay Gordon as a journalist, Kate Brannigan as a PI, and the Tony Hill Carol Jordan series that involves a forensic profiler and a cop. Plus, she's written standalones, nonfiction, and short stories. There's not a whole lot that she can't claim. She recently received an honorary doctorate of education from Sunderland University, where the Vice Chancellor called her one of the true icons of 21st century fiction, and I think that's a good identifier for her. We also are celebrating an anniversary for Val today. It is, to the day, the 24th anniversary of her first publication. So 24 She got to choose the title of this interview from one of her own book titles. She chose Place of Execution. I'm hoping we both come off the stage alive.
I just called it that because I knew it would be properly executed with you in charge. And before we start, I just want to thank you all for being here when you could be at Macy's 20% off sale. Don't all leave at once.
I thought I would actually make Val do the work for this interview. On top of answering my questions, she's going to create the questions. In her new book that was just published here in the United States, it's been out for a while overseas, Trick of the Dark, it starts out, what's your earliest memory? I don't mean something you've told so many times it feels like a memory. I'm talking about the first thing you remember through your child's eyes. A knee-high memory, a don't understand the words memory, an honest-to-God slice of emotion that can still fell you like a tree. The recalled moment that is the key to what shapes you forever.
I don't know if it's a moment that shapes me forever, but I think the first thing I have a kind of visual recollection of was when I was 2½, and I know it was when I was 2½ because of the context. The town I grew up in Scotland, Kirkcaldy, at Christmas time we always used to have a big Christmas tree in the town square, and there would be some Christmas carol concerts down at the town square. And they used to have these little machines that you would put money in, and there was one that had little plastic soldiers of Scottish soldiers with kilts and their bagpipes, and you put tuppence in the machine, and it played Scotland the Brave, and the plastic soldiers like marched up and down. And I remember sitting on my dad's shoulders watching the carol concert, and I remember the machine that you put the money in. And the thing I remember sort of very vividly about it was I was asking where my granddad was, as I wanted my granddad. And I mean, that's just the memory, it's just a kind of snapshot memory. And of course that was the first Christmas after my granddad had died. So I just had this very vivid memory of being on my dad's shoulders and wanting my granddad. And the Christmas lights and the singing. I don't know that it's turned me into the writer I am today, however.
However, the fact that she can tell that story so beautifully, that's an indication. Okay, so 24 years, 25 novels. What keeps it fresh? What makes it fun still?
I don't know, the ideas are still as plentiful as they ever were. The ideas still come dropping down from heaven, or from things I hear on the radio or stories people tell me. I still have, I suppose, that sort of the excitement of fresh ideas, the idea that this little fragment of something could be a story, could be a book, could be something bigger. And then the excitement of trying to make it into something else. So that's what keeps me going, I suppose, the fact that I still find that whole process worth getting up for in the morning.
Do the ideas ever start getting overwhelming and take over? Like, wait,
well,
slow
they're just, I mean, ideas are always kicking around, and a lot of them just fall by the wayside and never come to anything because they don't grow. They don't find fertile soil in the back of my mind. They're just like fleeting. They're here and gone like fireflies. But other ideas stick, and they accrete other bits and pieces that seem to belong, broadly speaking, to that idea. So it's just I don't really know what the process is. It's one of those things that you almost can't examine too closely because it's a kind of alchemy, a kind of magic, and you don't really want to look at it too closely in case wheels come off.
When you were growing up, you always knew you wanted to write, but you were told you couldn't make a living as a writer.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to write really from the first time I realised that the people wrote the books, got paid money for it. It wasn't just something they did because they were nice. Yeah, my mum used to take me to the library when I was really small, and before I could even read, and I used to partly say that I was going to the Labrador. My mother thinks I've been going to the dogs ever since. It's a whole other story. But I used to read a series of books called the Chalet School books. And one of the characters in that sort of ongoing series of books left school and became a writer. And it was clear to me reading this that she got paid for it. And I thought, well, I could do that. I could tell lies for a living. And that was really the point where I formed that ambition. But yeah, I mean, I came from a sort of very working class, blue collar background. My grandfathers were both miners, and my dad worked in the shipyard. People like us didn't get to be writers. So although it was my ambition, it was one that most of my family and friends thought was frankly insane.
So do you think that's what gave you the drive? Would you maybe not had that drive had no one said you can't do it?
I don't think it was that. I think the kind of other side of the coin. I mean, I think in all of us we get mixed messages in our childhood, don't we? We get sort of messages of encouragement and messages that say you can't do that. So the flip side of the sort of know your place, people like us don't get to do things like that. The flip side of that is that I grew up in Fife, which has always been politically very radical. My father was a great fan of the poet Robert Burns, who was a great adherent of the French Revolution principles of equality, fraternity, liberty. And I grew up very much with the message of Robert Burns. I was as good as anyone else, that I could do whatever I wanted if I worked hard enough at it. So I had these two kind of conflicting sets of belief, which somehow I managed to sort of juggle. And I think that the one that said you can be anything was the stronger of the two. Because I also, a big part of the culture I grew up in was the notion that you got a better life than your parents had by education. Education was the key. And there was a very strong push for my generation.
And that turned into you pretty much saying to hell with the boundaries. You were the first. You were first accepted to St. Hilda's College from a state school in Scotland, and you had the first female author, the first openly lesbian detective in Lindsay Gordon. You were one of the youngest at St. Hilda's College, and you said that you had this motivation behind you. Any genetic behind it, do you think?
I don't think so, and I think part of it, the drive, if you like, the drive came from an educational experiment that I was involved with in Fife growing up. Fife Education Committee had this brilliant idea that they should take the brightest and best of the kids in primary school and send them off to high school a year early to see how that went. and they did this. They whisked us all out of our primary school classes and sent us off to high school. And it might just have been okay if they kind of scattered us throughout the year, but instead they sort of separated us off into a different class. So we spent the first 2 years of high school in a class that was designated 1E and 2E. And the authorities said, well, this was E stood for early. But of course all the other kids at the school said, it's experiment. Oh, you're in the experiment class. You're one of the experiments. And there was, so you had a lot of peer pressure on us from that point of view. But the school also had, tremendous pressure on us that we were supposed to be the best and the brightest. And you know, if you stumbled at all, you were like, you know, sort of held up as, you know, someone who had failed. So there was a great deal of pressure on you to succeed. And by the time we got mixed into the general school population, I think we were all branded for life. Certainly, you know, at the ages of sort of 12 and 13, it makes a huge difference. A year makes a big difference. So when all these kids around us who were, you know, sort of that whole year sort of more grown up, more emotionally mature, more hairy than us, it was always kind of the pressure on you to, like, you know, to conform to being better than your age group, better than your peer group, and it was very it was for every one of us who succeeded and ended up with a sort of huge overdrive to succeed. 2 or 3 of them crashed and burned, and to that extent the experiment was a failure. Not everyone turned out like me and Gordon Brown. I mean, I think it really took me till I was about 50 to relax, you know, and not have to be the first, the youngest, the best at everything. And it's. I don't think necessarily being that driven is a good thing.
Okay, so questions?
They're all desperate to get to Macy's.
How has your family reacted to your international fame?
My family see their entire role in life as not to react to my international fame. My family see their role in life as to bring me entirely down to ground level. It's like, you know, I mean, yes, they're very proud of me, and I'm very, very glad that when I come home, all of that is left at the door. When I'm at home, I'm just like anybody else, you know. I'm just like any other mum, like any other wife. I have a very, very normal family life, I think. We don't live in a great mansion, we don't have servants, I don't fly a helicopter. I think if you're a successful person and you have kids, it's very important that you not make them feel that your life is my life outside the house, if you like, is what normal life is. It's important to give people a sense of proportion.
Were your parents alive to see your fame?
My mother is still alive, and she's probably my most avid reader. My father sadly died just the week before my first book was published, and that's one of the great sadnesses for me, is that although he knew the book was being published and he'd seen the jacket flat, he never held the book in his hands. Stuff happens.